extremity. First joint, that is joint between scapula and humerus, that is shoulder joint. I think that easiest classification. Is it simple or compound? Simple. Two articular surfaces, glenoid cavity and head of humerus. Then what is the shape?
No, ball and socket, no? That is ball and socket.
Ball and socket or spheroid? Spheroid joint. Simple, spheroid, and how many axes?
One. No.
Multi-axial. Simple, spheroid, and multi-axial joint. And here it is only one ligament. It is the same good news. This ligament is between coracoid process and humerus. That is why name of this ligament, ligamentum coracohumeralis. One ligament, one another ligament, it is own ligament of the scapula. This ligament is between coracoid process and acromion, that is ligamentum coracoacromiale. This ligament, it's protect to dislocation of humerus upward. It's work like roof of shoulder joint. It is not in shoulder joint, but is protect shoulder joint from dislocation. Clear it is. That is ligamentum coracoacromiale. That is additional ligament in shoulder joint. Glenoid cavity has cartilage which is increase volume of these cavities. That is labrum glenoidale. That is cartilaginous lip cartilage which increase volume of this glenoid cavity. Labrum glenoidale. Here it is. And the same additional structure of shoulder joint, that is tendon of biceps, long head of biceps, start from supraglenoid tubercle, and this tendon pass through cavities of shoulder joint. That is why it's also work like intra-articular structure of shoulder joint, long head of biceps. And last moment, in place where this long head of biceps pass in space between greater and lesser tubercles in sulcus intertubercularis, here it is, we have synovial vagina. That is decrease friction of tendon of biceps with the bones. That is vagina synovialis intertubercularis. It's also near of shoulder joint. And last, that is movements in shoulder joint. Movements. Here it is. In frontal axis, what is this movement? That is flexion and extension. In sagittal axis, abduction and adduction. And in vertical axis, rotation. Rotation outside, that is rotation outside, that is supination, and inside pronation. The same is possible circumduction. Circumduction, that is if we work together, flexion, extension, and abduction and adduction. If we work together, that is circumduction. That is not additional axis, that is the same axis, frontal and sagittal. But if we move together, flexion, extension, and abduction, adduction, we receive circumduction. That is all about shoulder.
So there was another two additional ligaments, ligamentum transversum scapulae superior and inferior.
It is all ligaments of the scapula. They are not ligaments of shoulder joint, but they are all ligaments of the scapula. One is above of the incisura scapulae. Here it is ligamentum transversum scapulae superior. Here it is between this ligament and notch we receive opening, and here it is arteria suprascapularis pass above of this notch. and another ligament is between spinoscapulae and posterior side of glenoid cavity. Here it is ligamentum transversum scapulae inferior, and in this opening, artery which is circumflex scapula pass, arteria circumflexa scapulae pass through this opening between neck of the scapula and ligamentum transversum scapulae superior, here and here. Two additional ligaments. Third additional ligament between coracoid and acromial process, yeah, I already said.
Yes.
Next, elbow joint, articulatio cubitum. Articulatio cubitum. This joint is compound because consists of condyle of humerus, incisura trachearis of ulna, and head of the radius. It is compound and biaxial joint. Compound biaxial joint. But if we want to describe shape of this joint, we need to describe shape between humerus and ulna, that is trochlea of humerus, joined with incisura trachearis of ulna, and we receive trochoid joint, articulatia tracheida, that is in joint between humerus and ulna, articulatio humera ulnaris. Between capitulum humeri and head of the radius, we have articulatio humero radialis, it is spheroid joint. And last joint between circumferentia articularis of radius and incisura radialis of ulna, this joint is articulatio radio ulnaris proximalis. It is cylindrical joint of the first type. That is why articulatio cubiti, it consists of three joints. First is articulatio humero ulnaris, second articulatio humero radialis, and articulatio radio ulnaris proximalis. But all of these three joints has one capsule. That is why it is one joint, articulatio cubiti, elbow joint, and it is biaxial joint. Which axis and movements? In frontal axis we make flexion and extension, and in vertical axis it is pronation, and supination. Two axes of movement. Ligaments. First ligament between middle epicondyle and incisura borders of incisura trachearis. From here to here, ligamentum collaterale ulnare. Another ligament between lateral epicondyle. This ligament starts from lateral epicondyle, goes to the head of radius, separates into two halves, surround head, and attach anteriorly and posteriorly from incisura radialis on ulna. They're not fused with the head of radius, but they fused with ulna here and here. That is ligamentum collaterale radiale. And another ligament, it starts from anterior part of incisura radialis, surround neck of the radius, and attach posteriorly. That is ligamentum annulare radii. One again. Here it is ligamentum collaterale ulnare. Here it is ligamentum collaterale radiale and ligamentum annulare radii. Three ligaments surround elbow joint, articulatio cubiti. Next, between radius and ulna we have what?
Interosseous
Membrane. Membrana interossa antebrachiae. And this membrane has opening in proximal and in distal part where vessels pass. Next, distal joint between radius and ulna, that is radius and ulna, that is articulatio radio ulnaris distalis, cylindrical joint of the second type, simple and uniaxial, only one axis vertical. It is pronation and supination, cylindrical of the second type. Next joint, that is joint between radius and bones of carpus, radiocarpal joint, articulatio radiocarpa. Ulna not participate in this joint. It is between ulna and radius. We have triangular cartilage, fibrocartilago triangulare, triangular cartilage, fibrocartilago triangulare. And this cartilage, it's closed ulna, and ulna not participate in joint between radius and bones of carpus. That is why radiocarpal joint consists of facies articularis carpaa and triangular disc, discus articularis, or fibrocartilago triangulare, here it is. And distally, here it is three bones, scaphoid, lunate, and triquetrum. Os scaphoidum, os lunatum, and os triquetrum. That is why radiocarpal joint is compound, because it consists of 1, 2, 3, 4 bones. It is ellipsoid in shape and biaxial. Compound, ellipsoid, biaxial joint. Frontal axis, like usually, flexion and extension, and sagittal axis, abduction and adduction. Next joint is mediocarpal joint, articulatio mediocarpae, between proximal and distal rows of carpus. Mediocarpal joint. It has S shape, because one head, it is os triquetrum, os lunatum, and os capitatum, os hamatum, it is. And another head that is os hamatum together with os scaphoidum, that is S-shaped joint, and it works the same like ellipsoid radiocarpal joint. That is why movements in mediocarpal joint are the same like movements in radiocarpal joint, and ligaments, it is the same ligaments of both joints. First ligament between styloid process of radius and bones of carpus, that is ligamentum collaterale carpi radiale. It is ligamentum collaterale carpi ulnare from styloid process of ulna. Then ligamentum radiocarpium palmare and ligamentum radiocarpium dorsale. One again. It is ligamentum collaterale carpi radiale. It is ligamentum collaterale carpi ulnare. Ligamentum radiocarpium palmare, palmar surface, and ligamentum radiocarpium dorsale. These ligaments both for radiocarpal joint and for mediocarpal joint. Next joints are joints between nearest bones of carpus, articulatio intercarpia interossa, between bones of carpus. Next joint between bones of carpus and bones of metacarpus. It is articulatio carpa metacarpa, carpa metacarpal joint. And it is specific joint between first metacarpal bone and trapezius bone in carpus. That is articulatio carpa metacarpa pollicis. Pollux, that is first thumb. That is pollux in Latin. Articulatio carpa metacarpa pollicis. This joint is saddle joint. Saddle, simple biaxial joint. It is. All another joints are plane joints. Next, joints between metacarpal bones and phalanges. Articulatio metacarpophalanga. Metacarpophalangeal joint. They are ellipsoid biaxial joints. Flexion, extension, and abduction from middle finger and adduction to middle finger. That is why here it is abduction and here it is abduction. And now that is adduction from middle and to middle finger. Here it is necessary to know one ligament which pass in the region of head of metacarpal bones here. That is ligamentum metacarpum transversum profundum, deep metacarpal transverse ligament. Ligamentum metacarpum transversum profundum. And last, interphalangeal joints. Articulatio interphalange. Here it is proximal joint and here it is distal. Articulatio interphalange proximalis and distalis. Only thumb has one joint between proximal and distal phalanx. Articulatio interphalange of the thumb. All another has two, proximal and distal joint. Clear it is? They are trochoid joint and all of them are uniaxial joints with collateral ligaments. Here and here, all of them has ligamentum collaterale. And last ligament which you need to know, that is ligament between eminentia carpi radialis and eminentia carpi ulnaris. This ligament has name retinaculum flexorum. Retinaculum flexorum.
So is it where the carpal tunnel syndrome happens?
Carpal what?
Carpal tunnel syndrome when like beaver.
No, that is this syndrome is inflammation in the region of tendon of muscles, but this tendon pass below of this ligament. That is why it is very, very important ligament for all muscles which continues to fingers on palmar surface of the hand. And please give me these preparates. Put here. What is it? That is maxillary sinus, sinus maxillaris. That is concha nasalis inferior, concha nasalis media. Maybe, no, it is impossible to see temporomandibular joint, but here it is absent. That is dorsum sella. Here it is optic canal is here. That is lesser veins of sphenoid bone. Here it is dura mater. That is hard meninges of brain. It fused with bones of the skull. Here it is. I want to show you shoulder joint. That is scapula. Here it is clavicle. That is a clavicle. And this joint between clavicle and acromion end of scapula, that is acromioclavicular joint. And you can see here it is coracoid process, and between coracoid process and tuberculum canaidum, this ligament, that is ligamentum coraco-acromiale, coraco-claviculare, and here it is acromioclavicular ligament. Then this ligament between coracoid process and acromion process, that is ligamentum coraco-acromiale, here it is. It is roof of shoulder joint, and here it is absent from coracoid process to humerus should be ligamentum coraco-humerale. That is long head of biceps, and this tendon pass in sulcus intertubercularis. It's surrounded with vagina, synovial vagina, vagina synovialis intertubercularis. And this tendon, look here, it starts from supraglenoid cavity, tubercle, tuberculum supraglenoidale. That is tendon of biceps, clear it is. It passes through cavities of shoulder joint. Only one tendon in human body pass through joint, like intra-articular structure, that is long head of biceps, because it starts from supraglenoid tubercle of the scapula. Heat is absent, should be ligamentum transversum scapulis superior, and heat is the same, absent ligamentum transversum scapula inferior. Elbow joint and joints of the hand today is absent. Maybe next time we receive another joints, and in this case I show you in time of our next classes. That is all. Your questions?